Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. My name is Chris Salem. You found us here at TALRadio, and that's for Touch of Life Foundation. We hope that you're getting much value here at the Touch of Life Foundation podcast platform. And again, we've been here now for almost 3 years. Yes, every week bringing subject matter experts to share their words of wisdom and insights to elevate your level of influence in business to the next level. If you would like to see future content that has not been shared on here before, feel free to reach out to us at Christophersalem.com, and we'd be more than happy to evaluate what you're looking for a future show and locating the right subject matter expert to share their words of wisdom on that particular show. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, this is a membership program, but it takes all the noise out of social media. No more of those noisy notifications. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with and the groups that you want to participate in. If you would like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. I'm so excited. This is somebody that I know personally, and I'm so glad that I'm looking forward to hearing her and what she's going to share here today. So we're going to be talking today about Evolve Your Leadership, Elevate Performance. And we are here with Leasa Neaves, and she is the founder and CEO of LN Leadership Partners. And she is driven by one mission: to help executives, leaders, and teams accelerate alignment, drive growth, and achieve transformational outcomes. With over 25 years of experience in field marketing, sales, and leadership, including as a chief of staff, she brings the perspective of a leader who understands what it takes to drive business results while nurturing talent. Her leadership coaching isn't just about strategy. It's about unlocking potential in people to fuel sustainable growth. And without further ado, we welcome Leasa Neaves to the show. Leasa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, I'm so excited, about this. Leadership is always one of my favorite topics, and just like the title of the show here, Evolve Your Leadership. It always starts with the person, people leading by example, regardless of role. And how do we evolve? It's not like you go from A to Z overnight. You evolve, and as you're evolving, you're progressing, and as you're progressing, you're elevating. So I'd love to find out, what you see, in the corporate space with leaders, like, that are people starting to, discover now that, if we're going to create more leaders, we got to become those leaders. We have to be and become those leaders first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chris, I'm seeing a couple things in the corporate space. First of all, there is a growing awareness, and this is supported by research from Gallup and Zinger-Folkman and others, a growing awareness that leadership is critical. And leadership doesn't just mean that you have the title of a manager or director or anything else, right? Leadership is really around unlocking the best in your people. And you mentioned that in my introduction, right? I believe very much that leadership is unlocking your people's best talents so they can do their best work. And so I'm very much seeing in the corporate space that even though, for example, in my industry in tech, there's a lot of layoffs happening and, teams are changing, there's still a view that leadership really solidifies a team's mission, a team's purpose, and a team's ability to move forward. And without that, you see gaps in performance. I'll give you a great example. I've just been doing, I'm in the process of launching a program called the Edge Sales Leadership Accelerator. And I've done a bunch of research with a lot of sales leaders, directors, VPs, even some folks that directly support sales, and talk to them about what happens when there's a leadership gap. Because unfortunately in sales, sales people get better, but they don't necessarily become better leaders. And so what I'm hearing very consistently is that this gap is causing teams to be unable to meet their quota in the most effective way, engage with customers in the most effective way, keep team members on board and engaged. And so there's this growing desire and this growing understanding that leadership, really developing strong leadership, really brings the best performance for these sales teams. Now, I validated this through research, and I'm talking about sales teams right now, but the reality is you and I know it's the same for every team. The leadership really matters.
It does. So true. And when you said that, like there, especially in the sales area, like, you could have even somebody that was great at selling and they were promoted, but they can't lead. And then
Yeah,
all of that great knowledge, they
right.
just don't know how to communicate it. They don't know how to bring it out in other people. And then they often
Exactly.
probably enable them and say, I'll just do it for them and sell it. And then, just keep them stuck.
And that's what often happens, but that's not their job, right? Once they've been promoted to a leader, their job is not just to do it for their team members and sell it, because then their team members not doing their job, and they're not, and the leader's not doing their job, and you just have like a whole, it's like a whole lack of productivity and lack of efficiency because everybody's trying to do everybody's job. But the problem, Chris, and again, we're talking about sales, but it's not specific to sales, is that a lot of times those people who are great individual contributors, they do get promoted. This is a long-standing problem. This is not new. They don't know how to be leaders, and nobody's teaching them. And that's where I'm seeing companies really start to see that gap and want to lean in more and more to both leadership development, leadership coaching, and even better hybrid offerings that have both leadership development and coaching in the same package, so to speak.
Yeah, so true. No, I love that what you said. So what would you suggest, Leasa, when you look at companies that are bringing out, is that something they have to be mindful of with, before they actually hire the position, whether if it's from within or from out, or they're promoting somebody, that type of thing. They got to take that into consideration. Can this person be developed into a leader, or you got to
Yeah.
look at innate abilities, and then are there skills that can be enhanced in leadership that can be brought out?
Yeah. That's very true. And I think there's a multifaceted answer to your question. So when you're promoting someone, it's typically someone that you know, because they've been in your company and you understand what they're capable and you understand what their capabilities are, right? Now because of that, you know where their gaps are and where they need to be developed, and you can plan accordingly and plan to understand whether or not they have that capability. When you're hiring someone from the outside, though, you kind of make an assumption like, oh, this person's been a marketing director or a sales leader or operations VP or whatever they may have been at another company. They can tell you in the interview about whether or not they're a good leader, but the reality is you have no way to validate that until they come on board. And so companies really need to have a plan for onboarding new leaders and making sure that those leaders have the fundamentals to build and develop those leadership skills. Some leadership skills are company specific. Many leadership skills are company agnostic, right? So understanding how to motivate your people, you can do that. That's company agnostic. Understanding how to assess talent, that's company agnostic. Understanding something like your company's mission, that's company specific, so a little bit different need. But the reality is your leaders need to be firing on both cylinders, and companies need to plan to make sure that they have leadership development, leadership coaching, leadership capabilities training in place to help their leaders really get the best of their team members.
Yeah, so true. I love that. What would you say that, again, you got an organization, regardless of size, of course, it could be small, mid-size, even a Fortune 500 company. What would you recommend that these leaders start to look at as they change their leadership to, so that if they're concentrating on, elevating performance, increasing sales in this case, what would be that step-by-step process for them to evolve that leadership?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost is to really have a good understanding and assessment of your talent. And I don't mean the leadership talent necessarily, although that's equally important. But as a leader, I have to truly understand the people on my team. I have to understand their talent. I have to understand what they bring to the table. And I have to concurrently understand what their motivations are. And so that's really, the place to start is really getting into the dynamics of your team and making sure you understand them. Once you understand them, then that gives leaders an opportunity to really put in place the right kinds of levers to help people develop. And, development can be mentoring, it can be coaching, it can be formal development programs, it can be LinkedIn Learning, for example. There's a lot of different ways to help your people advance and develop. But a leader has to be involved in that process and involved in making sure that their people have development plans to help them actually deliver better performance. So first, you get to know your team. Second, you build a plan for each member of your team to get better. And third, you do a continuous cycle of assessing and coaching, right? Making sure you see where your people are getting better, where they're still not, where they're still gapped, perhaps, where they have opportunities, and going back and revisiting that development plan. Equally important, Chris, in that part of the process is giving people performance feedback. Now, this is one thing that is kind of like I would say it's kind of like an untalked about facet of leadership.
Yeah,
Lots of leaders.
Can you spend more time there? Because what the two things that stood out, what you just shared, like two key things: mentoring, which is a way to how to connect better, get where there's more relating and understanding, and less people being defensive when being told what to do. At least that's how I took it. And then the performance feedback. Is it okay? We're going to do your performance feedback. It's that time of year, and we're going to do that. Well, shouldn't we having some checkpoints along the way?
Yeah. It should never be that time of year, because even when it is that time of year should simply be a calibration of all the things you've talked about up to this point, right? To answer your question, I'm going to start with performance feedback.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's uncomfortable, especially when people aren't doing well. But there's kind of a saying like feedback is the gift that keeps on giving. And the reason feedback is the gift that keeps on giving is people can't get better if they don't know what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And so many leaders are scared to say, hey, you didn't handle that very well with that customer, or hey, you could have navigated that situation better with an internal stakeholder. Hey, you didn't turn your work in on time that I expected, or it wasn't the quality that I expected. But when you don't say that, you're making an assumption that person realizes something they've done wrong, or something they could have done better. You're not giving them the opportunity to actually improve.
Yeah.
And so I challenge leaders all the time: be direct, have the conversation. Yes, I know it's difficult. It gets easier every time once you practice it. And when you don't do that, you can never expect to, what we've been talking about, elevate and evolve the performance of your team. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You're just not giving them the tools they need.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and I guess, having more frequent touch points, so it shows that, hey, I'm committed to your success. And if we can nip this now, then we got 2 other quarters now to make up and get that. Is it also important for that leader that's looking that they also have to be an example of what they're looking for? Maybe not exactly to what those say, but what their objectives
Absolutely.
the team overall, that type of thing.
Yeah. And maybe that ties back to your comment of your question about mentorship, right?
Oh yeah, mentorship. Yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, the question you asked ties directly back to mentorship, because much of leading by example really is informal mentorship. A lot of people think that what mentorship looks like is like if I reach out to an executive or a leader and say, "Hey, would you be my mentor?" And that's certainly a very valuable part of mentorship. But equally important is simply being a mentor by demonstrating good behaviors that you want your people to observe. We can learn so much as employees. We can learn so much by watching what our leaders do, good and bad, let's be honest. But when our leaders are modeling good behavior, that is a form of informal mentorship, because they're showing the team what's expected and how to do things the right way. And nowhere is this more important than in communications and relationships, because that is where any direct report can look up to their leader. It doesn't matter the functional area. They can see how the leader communicates. They can see how the leader interacts with other people. They can see how the leader builds relationships and really demonstrate the right behavior for their team members, again, in any functional area, to really excel.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. And this is always something I always like to ask, Leasa. Communication is oftentimes usually the culprit in why sometimes there's breakdowns in this area, because it's all based on assumptions and speculation, where expectations thrive in that type of communication. When it's specific, clear, and concise, and you can reduce the assumptions and speculation, like you said, it's more specific, clear, and concise. You're now having multiple times you might be talking to that person to check in where they're at, to keep moving them along, to elevate. How important that is communication in this whole process, do you feel?
Yeah. I think that communication is all too often the weakest link in the chain. It's so easy to break, and so many things go wrong when communication breaks down. I'm going to give you a little bit of a silly example, but it's very, very real. I volunteered yesterday to build a playscape at a local children's home. And there was no communication. There was two teams, team A, team B. Team A finished, didn't leave any information for team B. And so guess what? I was on team B. Team B got there, and we thought that we were going to have our project done in 2 hours. We were there for 4 hours, right? So it's a really small example, but very real. We've all been in that situation where, you don't pass on information, you don't share expectations, you don't do little things like just tell people what's happening. And again, it becomes the weakest link in the chain. This is a place where when leaders improve, they see dramatic results in their teams. They have better connections with their people. They have better ability to ask their people to lean in and deliver their best performance. And their people understand both their expectations and then also where they can continue to improve and where they're doing well. We never want to minimize where people are doing well. Sometimes we focus too much on where people can get better and we forget about the fact that, hey, they're probably doing things really well today. But these are both super important aspects of communicating between a leader and a team.
I love what you just said, and that's where a good mentor. So, it doesn't mean that like, hey, if you came in last place, you still get a trophy, right? That I didn't grow up that way. I know if I got a trophy, it's because we came in first place.
Yeah, exactly.
We had to play hard. But with that being said, like, how important is it with that employee recognition, like that? And not just saying it to say it to check a box off, but like saying it when credit is due. Even a simple like, I appreciate what you did this week with the customer, blah, 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 that type of thing.
I mean, it ties into the communications piece we were just talking about. It ties into elevating the performance of your team because they know that you care and you're paying attention. And actually, it ties into something else important too, Chris. And that is this. We all have things that we can work on, and I'm not saying that we should forget about them. But we all also have inherent strengths. And when, as a leader, I can understand the inherent strengths of my people and help my people build upon those strengths, maybe even spend more time recognizing those strengths and helping them maximize those strengths, I am going to get so much more out of that person by helping them really understand those strengths and, again, maximize them than I am beating them down on the things they can do better. Not suggesting that we don't talk about the things they can do better, but I am suggesting let's make the most of what people bring to the table, which ties back to what I was saying earlier about understanding your team and understanding your talents.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, again, I always like to go back because there's always assumptions and speculation. How is it important that the person that you're looking to help elevate that performance, that could be each of the team members, and then also they got to know what you're doing too as the leader. How important is it really understanding each other's role and duties as we are accountable for that, and then how we come together to complement one another to elevate the team?
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's the improvement required in that area?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a great example. One of my chief of staff roles, I worked for an executive who the company was under pretty significant change. Things were changing in the business model. Things were changing in kind of the go-to-market model. The organization was changing. Like everything was changing all at once. And the struggle that leader and her team faced was that they didn't have the people on her team. This as an executive, and these were all executives working for her. They didn't have clear swim lanes on what they were supposed to do and what she was supposed to do. And we went through an entire project where we laid out those swim lanes and said, okay, in all these transformations and all these changes, here's where each of our roles align. And more importantly, here's our clear sense of purpose where each of our roles come together. And the transformation on that team when that happened was substantial because here's what happened. It was like a waterfall. The executive had a better purpose, sense of purpose for the team and what she was supposed to do. Each of the leaders on her team had more clear understanding of what he or she was supposed to do. And then guess what? The people who worked for them all of a sudden understood their swim lanes, understood where the partnership was between them, and they were no longer tripping over each other and trying to do the same work. They had that purpose. They understood how their work rolled up to the purpose. And all of a sudden, real transformation could happen, which again, evolving the leadership of the team really created elevated performance for the entire organization. All because everybody understood and had communication around what those roles looked like.
Wow. Yeah, that's so important. I'm glad you shared that as a story to kind of illustrate the point. And We highly encourage the audience that, here in a little bit, you're going to learn how to get in contact with Leasa, and you can probably do a little bit deeper dive into that, which she has more information and how it can apply what may be happening in your situation with your team. So anything else that you would like to share in closing, Leasa, to this valuable topic? And I know we'll have you on again for a future show to kind of either elaborate further as a part 2 to this or something similar. Anything else that you feel would be important for that leaders that are listening to the show now and those later when it comes to this topic?
Yeah, Chris, I'll leave you with a quote. Maybe it's more of a philosophy than a quote. When I was first a manager, I worked for Marriott Hotels. And Bill Marriott was famous for saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers, and the business will follow. And I have always believed that, right? If you take care of your people and really get them invested in what you're doing and where you're going, you will find that all of a sudden customers will be happy, stakeholders will be happy, you'll drive the business results you want to drive. But if you can't take care of your people and can't show your people that they're valued and that you understand their motivations and their talents, very, very difficult to be successful as a leader and really ever achieve that evolving and elevating for your team.
I 100% agree, because it's like with anything, right? You want to be healthy. Well, you got to take care of yourself from the inside out, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and whatever. Now that will reflect outward to other people. And it's the same thing. If you're going to create great customer service, you're going to grow your business. That starts from within and what you do as an individual, team, and organizational level. Love what
Absolutely.
you're doing. Yeah. Well, everybody, Leasa, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today and sharing your words of wisdom. I would love to, leave, the next minute or so if you can share with the audience, how can they get in contact with you? What are you up to, and anything that you'd like to provide them?
Really, Chris, the best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. And I'm easy to find because my name has a unique spelling, and everyone can easily search my name and find me. I do have a website under development. It's leasaneaves.com. It will be ready sometime in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. But the best way to find me in the meantime is through LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn and love to chat with people and find out, what the challenges they're facing and ways that I can help them.
Excellent. Well, we highly encourage everybody to reach out to Leasa. Again, she's on LinkedIn. The new website is coming. It's going to be a really nice website, I know. And again, she brings so much experience from her corporate background, years of experience. Please reach out to her, definitely. And for those also that are looking for a great speaker in this area, she also speaks on a wide variety of these different topics. So that's a way to get a little taste of the value that she can provide to you. And then coming in on the back end, help you with your requirements in that area. So thank you, Leasa, for your time today.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you, listeners, joining us each and every week here at Business Influencers. Again, we are committed to your success and level of influence. And again, we want to make sure we bring in subject matter experts like Leasa in each and every week, help you do that. Again, your contribution matters, so feel free to reach out to us here at Chris@ChristopherSalem.com with any feedback or any information on, again, topics that you would like to see for a future show. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.